Hello and welcome back. I'm doing another unboxing video, this time with the RAK Miner V2. This is a Helium miner that allows you to mine HNT currency. This does not give you Wi-Fi. This connects long-range devices that are using the LoRaWAN technology. So that's long-range, very small battery to power it for many years, and then usually you just buy a new device to replace it to get your data. So that's what it connects. And you will need a phone to set this up. You won't need to have it paired with it forever. It's only for initial configuration and also for any diagnostics that you may need to do. So let's open this up. This does come, when it comes to you, it comes in a bigger box than this and it's unmarked. So just to let you know that as well. So as usual, there's a little pamphlet to get you started here, how to configure the device, where to go for support information, little QR codes, and then this is a nice place to write some seed words, or you can put them down. When you do this, when you configure an account, if you've never done this before, make sure you write these words down and write them down in a couple places, store them in a safe, put them in a safety deposit box, whatever you need to do, because if you lose those, then you lose all access to your miner. You will never be able to get that currency again, and or the crypto again, and you will basically, you'll want to toss the miner at that point because there's nothing more that you can do with it. There's no way to recover these. So please, please, please make sure that you're putting this down in a couple different safe places. Also, there are QR codes on the back. You will need, like I said, you will need a phone to set this up, and these are the apps that the Helium official app. One other app that I would really recommend is the Helium Hotspot utility. It's just down and dirty. I like it for getting the diagnostics information from the miners. So that's the pamphlet. Let's go into this. So here we have the miner, the power supply, and the antenna. Now, as far as I understand, this is, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong here, as usual. I can always count on you to correct me if I'm wrong, so I appreciate it. So I believe this is a 2.3 dBi antenna, and nothing wrong with this. Gotten great reception on a couple of installs that I've seen. This can go quite far if you put it near a window and have good, as much height as possible. So always try this out. Always try this out first. We're going to be talking about some other antennas, but always give this a shot first to see if you can get some witnesses off of this. It's just a good idea. So that is your antenna. This is the miner, and I already lost the dust cover, so I'm keeping in line with my last video as well. So you always want to keep that dust cover on until you have an antenna connected to it. Also, you always want to power down this when you're changing antennas. That's a very important point. So you power off by just pulling out the power supply. And that's it. If you need to reboot, if somebody tells you you need to reboot your device, all you do is pull it out and wait for 30 seconds to a minute and then plug it back in. And that's a reboot. So very simple. There's no power down procedure. Also, you'll notice on the V2, there is a button, and I wanted to really call this out because it is a quick click. That's it. Let me see if I can get that close to the microphone here. Just a quick click to activate the diagnostic mode. You don't need to hold it in for an amount of time. That is not required. So just a quick click, and then you'll be able to start the pairing mode. It may take a few seconds to start up. I think it's like 30 seconds-ish to get a true pair going. Also, if you're going to be connecting straight to Wi-Fi right away, then you'll want to wait about 3 minutes. It does take a little time to boot up, so keep that in mind. I always do recommend connecting to Ethernet, which is on the back here. You can see from the V2 that they've covered up these ports. So if you looked at the V1 video, you'll say, oh, that's different. So that's one other difference to this. And that's basically it for the miner. Very simple, cover ports. These are the only interface points that you need to worry about. these little things don't do anything either. So I have heard of some people encountering some issues with the top part here regarding Wi-Fi reception. And for anybody that is investigating that, there is a workaround for that if you so need it. So when you're doing this, make sure again that this is powered off and that you screw on the antenna. You don't want to over tighten. You want to just get a nice firm connection. Finger tight is fine. And then always in an up and down fashion. You don't want to be like this, because that doesn't help the signal propagate. You want to have it as up and down as possible. I've even seen some people put it up on its end like this and then set it on a shelf right here. Of course, if you're doing Ethernet, which I recommend, then that's not going to exactly work. So that's really the setup for it. Of course, you plug in the power and do your configuration. So that is it for the unboxing. Now, I did want to continue into some other parts of an unboxing, because there's also been questions about how do you set up full setup with an antenna. So I have some antennas that I wanted to show off. I'm just looking at my notes here. I wanted to say a couple other things before I get to the antenna. You don't need to do any SIM card backups. All of that is done. Even on the V1, there was only a small portion of the V1s that got out, which needed backing up there. But for the V2s and forward, you don't need to do any of the SIM card backups. There are procedures that are around even for the OG hotspots. Syncing, when you're doing your syncing, it is always recommended that you leave the Ethernet in. And what I tell all my hosts is for when you get the miner, sync it with Ethernet. And I don't care. I don't recommend that you take it off the Ethernet until it's fully synced. Even if you have to, go a little bit into mining and not getting any witnesses, that is absolutely okay. We want speed. So keeping it up on Ethernet is the best option. So I tell all my hosts that. Okay. So now here's some fun stuff. We have antennas. So this is the 3 dBi antenna. So if you remember from our live stream on the antennas, that all of these antennas will work with any miner that you choose. Okay, as long as the frequency of the antenna matches the frequency of the miner, which is based on your country, you'll want to have that match up, and then you can use with any miner. So Bobcat, RAK, the OG, and also the Nebra, they should all be compatible with any of these antennas. So this is the 3 dBi. You also want to remember from that same live stream that antennas are highly variable. It's somebody asked me even today, I still get this question, so I keep answering it in every video as much as I can, is like, what's the best antenna? Well, that's highly dependent on your use case. This has a lot more of a, picture it like a flashlight, right? So this has a very wide beam, so it would be coming out all over the place. It would be very wide angled flashlight, whereas a tight beam would be very much going and shooting in one particular location for a higher dBi antenna. So that's something that you want to keep in mind. So, and of course, you never want to orient your antennas like this. You always want to have them up and down. I've even seen some people do it upside down. I have not done that myself. I keep it with the vertical orientation here. But you really want to think about your application that you're going to be using this. This would be more circular, but not go out as far. So if you're trying to hit hotspots that are closest to you, then the 3 dBi would be better. I also have the 5.8 dBi, and I'm going to have to back up a little bit more for this. And this is actually, it feels a lot like the 8 dBi. I thought that, oh goodness, did they send me the wrong one? No, this is the 5.8 dBi. The 8 dBi isn't much longer than this. Maybe another 6 inches ish. You can look at all the specs, and that's another good thing to to call out is on all these manufacturer websites, they have the specifications on there. There's even temperature ratings for this and the miners. So you want to check that out. Again, I want to keep you all mining as much as you can, especially if you lose your miner in the midst of supply chain issues, then you're gonna have to wait or buy one for a lot of money, and that's gonna stink. So I want to keep you up and going. So this is the 5.8 dBi. Now when you order those, they will come with these antennas, or sorry, not antennas, connector cables. And I always encourage you to get educated on the ends of these cables. So on one side, we have the RP SMA. Okay, it looks very much like the SMA, but you want to make sure that you're keeping that in mind and get educated on those. Also, on the other end, this is an N-type female. Let's see if I can get that to focus here. There we go. So this is an N-type female connection. And then this screws into the N-type male. And again, you want to finger tighten this. You don't want to over tighten, because then that can be problematic, especially if anything starts to rust over time. I've also seen it encouraged to put some tape around this, moisture and UV resistant tape around there, just to help that connection a little bit more. I've even seen some applications use Teflon tape as well, the same that you would use in like plumbing, that you would put around this before you put it in. So just some more tips and tricks that I've picked up over the time here. So start to end, you have your miner. Of course, we'll pretend that it's powered up. I hope you don't mind that. I hope you can figure that out. That is a USB-C connector. There's been another question that has been very popular is, do these support PoE, power over Ethernet? These do not. You cannot put PoE in here. It will not power the device. You can put PoE into the device, or not into this device, but into, say, an enclosure, and then there's an apparatus that will take the PoE and split it up so that you can put one end into here and then the other end into their side port. So it will hit both of these in one shot. All right. So we're going to pretend that this is the 3 dBi setup. Again, this is for pretty short range. If you're on a balcony, or if you're not trying to go very far, this might be an excellent place to start. This is, again, available through RAK's website. I'll have links to all the equipment that I bought down in the description below, or pinned as a comment. If I'm ever wrong or whatever, check for a pinned comment. And in the description on every video. As soon as I get questions where I miss something, I will go back and include it in that. So always check back with that if there is a really good question. So here we are. We have the miner connected to this cable and then connected to the 3 dBi antenna. So you want to mount this vertically. This also comes with a couple of these U-bolts, or whatever you want to call them. It gets 2 of these, and then what I've done is I've usually put them on each one of these little ribs to make sure that they stay seated. And again, don't over tighten that. Obviously you don't want it wobbling around or going like, all over, because you want this to be as level as possible, especially with the higher dBi. The higher dBi you go, the more you want to keep it absolutely perfectly leveled in all directions, north, south, east, and west. I have a video on that as well to help you out, which I can link in the description. So that is it for connecting of the 3 dBi antenna, and then the 5.8 dBi is also the same. Now I'm doing this all with the power off. Just again, a reminder, turn the power off when you're connecting, if you're disconnecting these very quickly, you still want to have the power off. So same thing, same connector to the 5.8 dBi. This is the one that I've heard is the most recommended. I have not tested out that myself. I will continue to do my testing And even though you all have kept asking, I guess I'll finally do it. I'm going to rotate through every different manufacturer. I even had a friend that is getting a Syncrobit that he's going to lend to me to basically rotate through every single miner. And I won't be putting those results public, but as far as like, here's the data, but I will be talking about it. Okay, so one thing more on the antennas, if you're using something like either of these indoors, you'll want to check out I've heard command broomstick holders are very awesome. And then finally, I wanted to talk about your application. So when you are changing your antennas, it is going to be, I don't think it's required yet, but it will probably be soon, that you'll want to update your antenna information. And so how you do that is, so I'm going to use the People's Hotspot for an example here. And this is Puny Pecan Eel. And you can go to the cog up in the top left there. And then there's a special button called Update Hotspot. So when you come in here, there's two things up here, and this UI may change, so over time I'll try and keep some updates to it. And you can see here that it has TX, RX gain. So that is the gain of, you might think your antenna, but that's not just it. You want to think about your entire setup. So if you have a really long cable, then you would want to calculate the dBi loss with your cable. Or if you're joining two antennas together, that also results in loss. You can decide for yourself. I haven't tried it, if it's worth it to you. If you've tried combining two antennas and have some results, I would absolutely be happy to know your results. Again, I haven't tried it, but you definitely, when you're updating this information, you want to have your gain calculated appropriately as best as you can in this spot. And there is a selector in here that you can choose the antenna type. And I went to the RAK antenna, but it only populates with, I believe let's see here, let me go back just to verify. RAK antenna, yeah, so it defaults to currently the 5.8 dBi antenna. And so I had to actually type in my own with the 8 dBi. So that's just something to keep in mind. Now, another thing to keep in mind is your height. That is in meters. You do not want to put this in feet. So you're gonna have to do some calculations there, US and other imperial system users. But yeah, you use the metrics. Then, if you are using a custom antenna, then you'll want to go all the way down to the bottom and use the custom antenna setting, which then it will fully enable all the fields for you to put it in there and so forth. And I don't know the details on the height so far, whether it's the start from the height from the bottom of the antenna, the mid of the antenna, or the top of the antenna. I am not sure of that yet. If you do know the answer to this, please let me know in the comments. I would be happy to share that with all the viewers and subscribers out there. So what I did is I just measured to halfway through. That was my best guess. And I think that they're just looking into all this data to start with. Please also keep in mind that right now it costs something every single time to update your antenna information. So I would recommend, if you're going to start out with, say you're going to move it into your attic, then just, if that's your intended location for it, assert at that location and that height. Okay. Usually you don't have to change your location as far as like your geographic coordinates. If it's still in your house, then you don't need to change where the location is. But if you're changing vertical nature, then you will want to do it. Now, the question that you ask is, well, I mean, if I change it 10 feet, am I going to lose earnings? I don't think so yet. I think what they're doing is compiling this data and seeing what the results are, and then helping build the next system. As I understand, what's a little bit more official is that they're helping this to include that data in the next proof of coverage calculations. So hopefully that makes sense to you. That's pretty much it for covering everything in here. You do want to remember that the update location and also the update antenna both cost some HNT to do. So I'd recommend when you set it up, it's okay. You're not gonna get really bad results unless you really mess up your location. One thing on that I became aware of when I was setting up a hotspot most recently was that the location was off. And so I found that if I just accepted the first location, it tended to be a little bit better. That may improve as time goes on. So you may have to eat an extra update of your location at some point, but as long as you're in the general vicinity, within that 300-meter radius, I think you're going to be okay. You don't need to worry about being exactly in the right location right now. You'll be able to do that later. And at this point, you'll still have more than enough HNT to update the location and keep mining. So extra information for you. I hope you've enjoyed this video. As always, please like and subscribe. I appreciate the comments, the questions, and also the referrals. If you have liked this content and you want to thank me using your purchase to a new RAK Miner V2 from CalChip, please use the referral link below, or there's referral links to any of the others as well in many of the other videos that you can check out and click on. I appreciate it. Sincerely, I do. And thank you for watching.
Peace.